Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Your host is Debra Rue, CEO of Rue Global Impact and co-founder and chairwoman of Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring billions of voices of persons with disabilities together. To join the global community and to donate to the cause, visit billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org. And now, on to the episode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Debra Rue, and I'm the CEO of Rue Global Impact and also the executive chair of Billion Strong. And of course, what we really focus on is making sure that people with disabilities are included meaningfully. And so I appreciate y'all watching and supporting the program. My guest today is Carol Van Den Hende. And we had a conversation earlier about how do you pronounce her last name. So I'll let her talk to you about that. But before we do that, let me just say that I am a mature woman that has gray, white, and purple hair, and I have on brown glasses today and a gray dress that has pink flowers at the bottom of it. And so always like to give a visual description for anyone that's listening via podcast or has vision loss or is blind. So Carol, welcome to the program. And if you don't mind introducing yourself and also giving us a visual description.
Thanks so much, Debra, for that warm welcome. It is absolutely fabulous to be here. I'm really happy to introduce myself and give a visual description of myself. So I often say that I wear many hats in life, Debra, as I know you do as well. And so maybe I'll introduce your audience to three of those hats before I describe myself physically. One of which is I have a corporate life. By day, I work as a global digital strategist and also have a background in global marketing and in digital technologies. And it's been a wonderful, really productive and very meaningful career for me. So I've been really happy with that. Then I wear a second hat in which I am a wife, a mom of twins. My twins are now 19, which is a whole other life stage, and we're happy to chat about that. And then and then the third hat, which is probably the one that brings us together, are the ways in which I strive to give back in the community. I find one theme as I think over my life is that I'm a very purpose-driven leader. And so I strive to give back in many ways, and am so impressed with the work you do, Debra, and the impact you have is just so impressive. The ways in which I try to do that is through being an author, a speaker. I'm trained as a climate reality leader, and I also serve on boards of trustees. Just finished a term, hit term limits on a board for a school for kids with autism, and am now in discussions about my next board roles. And so in terms of me physically, for the audience who's out there, so I'm a Chinese American woman. I have black hair with a little bit of faded pink in it, and I'm wearing a forest green leopard print dress because I know, Debra, you are fierce, so I wanted to dress the part today. I also have a hot pink flower decoration on my lapel and a hot pink jeweled bracelet. And those were purposefully chosen because I'm feeling very on brand as an author today. My books, Orchid Blooming and Goodbye Orchid, both feature hot pink orchids on the front cover.
Fun. And I love the bracelet. I've become very fond of as I'm getting older, I'm getting more blingy. So so I love the outfit and that you did it with the brand because I'm very excited about your books. So Carol, tell us a little bit more about your professional job. I know that I know who you work for, and I just want to give them some love because we all love them. So, well, we do, and everybody will understand when you tell us who it is.
I have had the incredibly great fortune to count my time at Mars Incorporated, not in years, but now in decades. And in those decades, having had the good fortune to have three really distinct, very meaningful careers, one in digital technologies, the second after getting my MBA in global marketing, where I worked on brands like M&M's, Twix. I launched Twix peanut butter and worked in the US and in China. In China, I was responsible for our boxed chocolate business, including which really leveraged our Dove chocolate brand, which is a beautiful brand. And
Yes,
then
I
my
love
third career,
it.
yeah, it's really good. I was having some earlier today.
Oh,
And then my third career has been in strategy and insights, and I'm currently serving on our digital technologies leadership team responsible for governing our digital transformation as well as digital for sustainability, ways that we can apply digital to accelerate our sustainability objectives. So that's my
wow.
corporate life. Yeah.
And of course, when I heard she worked for Mars, I was like, you know, are the walls made of candy or the desk? And so since other people probably have that question too, is there candy everywhere in the Mars headquarters? Or
I have, and I get those questions. I also get the question whether I'm tired of chocolate after all these decades. And the answer is no, I don't understand that concept. How do you get tired of chocolate? So, really, the working at Mars is a full sensorial experience, which your audience might be able to appreciate. So, when I worked at the Mars Wrigley plant based here in New Jersey, and I would drive to the office and open my car door after arriving in the parking lot, the air would be scented with the smell of fresh roasted peanuts and chocolate. And it was just such a delightful way to start my day. And now I work in an office which is not next to a manufacturing facility. However, within the office, we have vending machines. Every slot of the vending machine is free. So the big choice
wow.
of the day is whether you're going to have Starburst or Skittles or Altoids or gum or Three Musketeers, Milky Way, Snickers, all
Oh,
of
yes.
these
I would get in so much
iconic,
trouble.
well loved brands. And if I can pull myself away from that vending machine, right next to it is a freezer full of Mars ice cream. So then I have to choose, is it going to be a Dove ice cream bar, Snickers ice cream bar, an M&M's ice cream cookie sandwich, or
Wow.
Kind frozen treat? There are just
Oh,
many
I
wonderful
didn't realize
options.
Kind was one of your brands. I love Kind. I love Kind options. Yeah. So I love their name, first of all, but I love their brand. So anyway, just wanted to give some love to Mars because we all love Mars. I mean, it's perfection. So
Yeah, and it's also an amazing pet care company. So I named so many of our confection brands because my marketing years were spent
oh, right.
on Mars Wrigley Confectionery. However, now I'm in global roles, which cross the enterprise. I've been in corporate strategy, strategic initiatives, and now in my digital role looks across confectionery as well as pet care. And the pet care brands are just as iconic and wonderful.
Well, it sounds like Mars is an amazing organization to work for. And I know that I love the brand. So, and I believe they're a beloved brand all over. I think you said that they make $45 billion a year. Is that true? I mean,
It is.
wow.
The scale of the organization is so incredible. And what makes me proud about the scale and that the brands are so well loved is really because the organization is a principles based,
Yes.
values driven organization, that when the business does well, it allows the business to invest in positive societal impact.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what makes me so proud.
Oh, that would make me so proud. I want to work for a company that is having positive change. So that's a lot of sugar, though. So, and I've done my part to contribute to it. So, but all right. Well, I want to move to your book. So, tell us more about becoming an author and the Goodbye Orchid series and why you went in that direction. I just love the name of the books. I love the name of the series.
Wonderful, because the name of the character is Orchid Page. So that's where the orchids come from in Orchid
Right.
Blooming and Goodbye Orchid. So I'd love to answer the questions. You're asking about the origin story. How did I become a writer? Here I've just described this, multi year career that I've had. And so the writing is interesting because even as a kid, I always loved to read, and writing little short stories, journaling was always a part of my life. And I thought when I was going to college that I was going to be an English major. But my very nice traditional Chinese family sat me down when I explained my intended major and said, this is very cliche, so go ahead, feel free to laugh, that I was very good at math and science. And so therefore, I should try a major in math, science, or engineering.
Wow.
And so that set me down an entire path that has led to these three careers, which I don't regret at all. It has been an amazing experience. However, it also is truly incredible to me to be able to say that I'm able to come back full circle to such an early love, one that was just central to my being, my identity. I always wanted to go to the library. And so the writing has always been a part of my life. However, what triggered this particular writing that was really intense and focused on this very emotional story that's in Goodbye Orchid and Orchid Blooming was a time of hardship in our own lives. So the twins I described before, one of them was having a hard time.
Okay.
And honestly, I turned to writing as a place of solace for myself. And you hear that as advice for lots of people
Mhm.
when they say, you're going through a hard time, write it out, write your heart out on the page. I was doing that. And at that time, I had seen stories in the news about combat wounded veterans. And what really gave me hope in seeing their stories was how strong and resilient they were in getting back to good. And I thought, if they can overcome the things that they've seen and have been through, I can certainly overcome this. And it's not just me, but my children,
Yeah.
our family
Right.
can get better. And so I was pouring that emotion and also the hope and empathy and optimism into the pages of my writing. And that's what readers now tell me they get out of these books.
Oh, that's wonderful. Because sometimes as an author, because I have not written fiction, even though I would also love to dabble with that, but I've written 3 books. Boy, that's hard to do, just saying. But it's, you don't know what the audience will get from your books. And I always think that's very interesting because maybe when you're writing it, you think, you're writing it for these reasons, but what they get from it, I think is very fascinating. They take the parts of the books, we take the parts of the books that maybe we really need at that time. So I just think that's very powerful.
Yeah, it's true. People have different experiences when they read the exact same story,
Right.
and it's because they bring so much of themselves to that experience.
Right.
However, I do find that there are some main themes that come through that readers tell me again and again that either they've not been through the type of medical difficulty and challenges that my characters go through, and therefore the work deepens their empathy,
Oh, good.
or the other group I hear from is people who have been through that type of trauma, difficulty, obstacles, and they say they feel seen on the pages of Goodbye Orchid and Orchid Blooming. And both of those are just heartwarming to hear.
I agree, because when you sat down to write the book, certainly you were trying to help yourself navigate a tough time. But did you hope it would help others navigate? The reality is we're all going to have tough times. We're all having tough times right now. But I find that we often don't know how to navigate these tough times. So was that part of the reason why, or did you even think about that aspect of it as you were writing it?
It's such an insightful question, Deborah, because as you're asking, it's reminding me the reason I decided to, instead of just writing for myself, which is how it started,
Okay.
decided to pursue publication. And it's actually one seminal moment. I recall it so clearly. I had joined a writing group in order to improve my craft. This particular writing group would meet in person every other week around one of the members' kitchen tables. And I remember that week in which we were sitting with Mary Lee Waldron at her kitchen table, the other writers, and I was reading a passage aloud from Goodbye Orchid. It's one in which Phoenix, after his accident, wakes in the hospital, sees what's happened to himself, and is trying to come to grips with this change that has changed his life forever.
Right.
And it was such an emotional passage that the entire table of writers, I was able to bring them to tears.
Good. Yay.
It was such a strong emotional reaction.
Wow.
And that's when I had the aha that actually this was bigger than just me. It had the power to move others.
Oof.
And then I took it really seriously that because it was inspired by combat wounded veterans, I took it very seriously to have the details be authentic and true. And so research, of course, was a big and important part of writing Goodbye Orchid and Orchid Blooming.
Yeah. And I just want to, talk a little bit about what you're addressing, because we've all had, well, I don't know, a lot of people have these really big moments. I know I just lost my husband in March, and it's, we're coming up on the 6 month anniversary. So the things that traumatize us, in life. And one day, you were not the same person that you were the day before. I mean, even with me, I was talking to my partner, Richard, my business partner, and I was saying, I'm not married anymore. And he's like, well, you're a widow. And I said, okay, but you are still married. You're a widow. Even things like that, it's like we lose our identities somehow. We're like, who am I though? Because my 40th year wedding anniversary is coming up next Sunday. So it's like, all right. So it's funny because sometimes we don't really know how to deal with our lives. So to take on something as major as the topics that you're doing in the book, I just think that's very powerful because we don't seem prepared, Carol, to handle the big, big things that happen to us in life. And a lot of us right now
Mm.
are dealing with gigantic things. I've talked about this on air before, but during the pandemic, I grew up with 5 siblings, including myself. 3 of us lost our husbands. 3 of us of the 5. So my family is very traumatized right now, just if I'm just looking at myself, right? So,
Mm.
but then you take it and you put it out there and out and out. And I think one way that we can try to find our way back home, our compass, is by books like yours. I really do. We need hope. We need almost guidance to know how we're supposed to move. How are we supposed to do this?
Mm. Well, first of all, just, deep condolences for your loss. And you've talked about it so beautifully. And although I never knew your husband, I feel
It's
like he's
amazing.
just such a wonderful person just from hearing the way you talk about him.
Yes,
And so,
he was great.
yeah.
I'm blessed. I cannot complain about being 41 years with this amazing man. So, even
Mm,
though our 40th wedding anniversary is September, but I was, so he was a real blessing.
yeah.
And I have to remember to be grateful for that too. But I
Mm,
do believe books like yours help us navigate the times in our life that can
yeah.
be very, very scary. Um,
It's true. And especially when you describe the incremental ways that you come to terms with it, how it affects your identity, what you call yourself. Those are things that Phoenix goes through as he, really takes this journey of healing and going through all the phases, going through denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance. There are little steps along the way in which it's dealing with what's the physical change, what's the emotional change, how do I see myself now? And writing those things certainly deepened my empathy. And therefore, it really is touching when I hear that the pages of my books are able to deepen other people's empathy as well.
yeah, yeah, very well said. How do you research that though? How do you research it in a way that you're sure you're confident that it is authentic? Tell us more about how you did that.
Absolutely. It's such a good question because the research took two main phases. First, because I had so much respect for the experience that these wounded warriors had gone through, I took the research incredibly seriously. And I put my hands on everything I could, including books and videos and articles to really try to immerse myself into what that experience must have been like. And then when the desk research still left some questions, the nuances of how you might feel in this situation or how you might deal with that situation, I turned to experts and I thank them in my acknowledgments. There are so many people who have helped, including surgeons, doctors, therapists, social workers, and then combat wounded veterans themselves. Purple Heart decorated combat wounded veterans read my entire script, my entire manuscript, gave me feedback, helped me shape the work. And I'm so grateful for all of that help. And so, there's the research phase up front that leads to the story, but then also the sensitivity reading, the people who've actually lived these experiences, for them to read and give me feedback and help me make the work as authentic as I can. It's just, it really takes a village.
I agree. I agree. And I believe that, these service members, they have a lot to teach us. a lot to teach us. And I know that when I had my old company, we were supporting people with disabilities, but at the time we were calling them veterans with disabilities. And we were hearing from the community, we don't like that term, call us wounded warriors or, and of course that's years ago. So the language has, shifted, but I often find that when we're talking about combat veterans that have been injured, that they do not necessarily identify as part of the disability community. I was just wondering if you're seeing some of that. And I'm also noticing that, of course, happening with people that have mental health issues, which, by the way, I think if you're a human, you might have some mental health issues sometimes because it's hard. It's hard. So I was just wondering how you pulled some of those things together. You thought about those nuances, I guess is the right word.
Yeah, there's so many nuances when it comes to this, and I certainly can't speak for everyone's experience, and can only say that I think that the way in which the story unfolds has basis in reality, and people have vetted that. But I do want to touch on this aspect that you're bringing up, that it's not just about the physical wounds, but also the mental health areas that are really important. And so orchid blooming, whereas in Goodbye Orchid, which came out first, even though it chronologically happens after orchid blooming, it deals with the physical changes that Phoenix has after his accident. In orchid blooming, it actually shines a light on PTSD awareness. And again, inspired by Wounded Warriors, even though the characters themselves in these books are not military veterans, they have the arc of the experience that a military veteran might have after having a traumatic incident or accident. And so that's why I say it's inspired by
Right. I agree.
Wounded Warriors.
And
Yeah.
that's such a good point, too, because I remember as we were navigating into the pandemic, and I heard several times, and I can't remember who was saying it, but people were saying that 65% of Americans were going to have PTSD when this was over. I think it's probably higher than 65%, and it's not just Americans. I think we're all experiencing it all over the world, and some of the things, even you are Chinese American. Some of the bullying and the meanness that were addressed towards Asian Americans, because sometimes I find our racists aren't good at understanding where people are from. So, they see somebody from Asia and they just assume, yeah. So, and now I am being a little sarcastic, but still, it is all these moving parts that create trauma, which is, why I think, and maybe I'm not going to pick up a book. I had a dear friend of mine send me a book about grief, and it still has the plastic wrapped around it. And it's like, Debra, it's going to do you much better if you unwrap the plastic and open that book, but I just can't yet. And so, but it's what I would be more willing to do is actually read a fictional book about it, because that I don't know, it's almost like maybe I'm making deals with my brain, but okay, it's not so much real if it's fiction. But that's another reason why I was really impressed with your writing, because we all need help. Sometimes we don't know that we need help, and we don't know where to go and get the help. So I just think, the work you're doing is very, very important. So
Thanks for those kind words. It means so much coming from you. And I think that you're making such a good point about fiction versus nonfiction. That nonfiction, it's, if you're ready to go head in, okay. But fiction, and my fiction, although what we're talking about is so much of the messages and the hope and empathy that come from the pages of Goodbye Orchid and Orchid Blooming, that actually it just feels like an immersive story. Feels like you're getting to know, 27-year-old Orchid Page and 31-year-old Phoenix Walker, how they meet, that they work together on a pro bono project, because more than anything, she wants to go to China. You're actually, you're talking about the Asian heritage, my Asian heritage. And this is part of what Orchid Page wants. She wants to go to China to be able to pay homage to her mother's memory,
right.
to feel closer to her mother's memory. But competition is fierce. She needs advertising experience, and then she meets the head of an ad agency,
Okay.
and then adventures ensue.
I haven't read it yet, but I am so excited about reading them. I'm just really excited. And since they both are out, Would you recommend that we read in a different order than the date order? I mean, what would you as the author recommend? Because I actually want to read both now. You've got me all excited. So I should have already done it. And I want to remind the viewers that please, please, please leave reviews. I would suggest positive reviews, but it really, really helps the author's work be found. So please do go and buy the books. It really will help in so many different ways, but then take the time to leave a review. So I just want to remind everybody as an author, that's so important.
You're so right. It's what helps the algorithms work.
Yes.
And I've heard you talk about that on other podcasts where you've met with authors, and I really appreciate you getting the word out about that. So, in terms of the order of the books, I'm actually getting readers who've read both, giving me both points of view. I do think chronologically, it makes the most sense to start with Orchid Blooming, which is coming out on Tuesday, the 13th
Oh,
of
yay.
September.
Happy,
It's right around the corner,
happy
so
birthday.
exciting.
Yay.
And so, yes, Orchid Blooming, it's a beautiful story about how Orchid and Phoenix meet, what they go through, shines that light on PTSD awareness, and just tells this beautiful full story that can be read as a standalone. Either of them can be read as a standalone. But the moment people are done with Orchid Blooming, they say, what's
I
next?
agree.
And lucky for readers, then they can say, well, what's next is Goodbye Orchid, in which they will the tension and the conflict and what happens just ratchets up to a whole other level.
And I know the one book is coming out on Tuesday, September 13th. That's my son's birthday, so I'll remember that date. But so, and I know you probably don't want to hear me say this, but so will there be a third book in the series? I know you're just getting
You're
your second one out. You probably want to have a moment to breathe.
You are reading my mind though, and all of this came about because when I went to book clubs and people loved Goodbye Orchid, they wanted to know what happened before page one. Tell me about the backstory. Tell me all of what ensued before. That's why the prequel Orchid Blooming is coming out next week. However, they also asked about what happens after the ending of Goodbye Orchid. And so there is a sequel coming in 2023, which has been drafted and is in the editing process.
All right.
So
Right. And when will we see movies?
I would love that. Let's hope that your audience is listening right now.
Right.
Your Hollywood producers and directors are listening and they cannot wait to
I
hit
agree.
me up on.
And
Yeah.
especially with the themes that we see in the books. Those themes are so important to the world right now. I mean, the Chinese theme, the the PTSD theme, it's just so important. So I do hope anyone that's listening will do it because we love a good story. But I personally love a good story when it teaches me. I want to learn. I'm always wanting to learn. So I really, really appreciate that. Now, you have won awards for disability awareness. And so I know you really support this community as well, but will you tell us more about that? And I'll try not
It
to.
has been such a source of pride. Thank you for asking about this. So, between the two books, it's already been more than 20 awards, and I'm still pinching
Wow.
myself. I cannot believe. And those awards include multicultural fiction because Orchid Page is half Asian, like my twins are. They include Best First Novel. They include design awards for the cover design and the interior design. But I do have to say, the ones that I am most proud of are the Royal Dragonfly for Disability Awareness and also Springboard Consulting. They just honored me in a way that still, when I think about it, my heart starts beating faster. They honored me as Disability Hero of the Year
Oh, wow.
for the work in my writing.
Oh,
Yes,
wonderful. That's wonderful.
just tremendous.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's why awards are important. They are important. I've been blessed to win a lot of awards, and it's wonderful to win, but it also makes you feel so good because the work is so important. So it really validates the work. And Springboard they've done amazing things for a lot of people for a long time. So we have a good community. We really do have a good community. You talked about this a little bit, but I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about what you're hearing from the readers. You've already addressed that, but and what are, I just was wondering if you could just give us a little bit more because I'm really hoping the audience is going to want to go out and read these books. I know I do. I really do. But, and I usually try to read before the guest comes on, but I'm sort of glad I waited now because I just think it's very important in time, the topic and everything.
Yeah, readers and reviewers have said that these stories are incredibly emotional.
Okay.
They say
Okay.
hashtag bring
Oh,
tissues.
yay.
Yes. In fact,
Make
Kristen
me
Higgins,
feel. Make me feel.
yes, yes, all of the emotions. I think Kristen Higgins recently messaged me to say that she finished Goodbye Orchid. It has all the feels in a good way, and that by the time she got to the last sentence, she was sobbing. I'm like, oh, I think it's done its
Make
job.
me cry.
So,
Yes. In a good way.
yes.
Make me cry. Yes.
Yes, so very emotional. And also,
Just.
I like to ask readers when I meet them, what are the parts that really moved you? And what I find is, of course, the big moments in the book. So, for instance, when I had described the moment when Phoenix wakes in the hospital bed, of course, that's incredibly emotional.
Right.
When he's going through physical therapy and things, those are really emotional. But also the little moments, the little details can bring people to tears. And I have an example here if you want to
Oh,
hear.
please, please, please. I didn't think about that, but we should always read on. Yeah, thank you, Carol.
Yeah, and this one, it really touched me. So I loved to hear that readers also like were brought to tears over this. This is a scene in which after Phoenix's accident, his admin helped him get a car service so that he could be driven around Manhattan to his workplace and back. And so he's in the car for the first time. It says, from the back seat, he stared at the blue accessible parking tag she must have ordered. Above the seated figure in a wheelchair, the placard was stamped in capital letters, permanent. And then he thinks to himself, like, I need a reminder that this isn't temporary.
Oh,
As they merged into traffic, the handcard swung from the rearview mirror like a noose. And I think the reason this came to me was when I met Sergeant Brian Anderson, who's one of the wounded warriors who helped me and loved Goodbye Orchid. We were in his car, and I saw that placard, and it said permanent in such big letters, and I'm like, do you really need to remind,
sweet.
like, and I wanted to change it, and I was actually going to ask him if I could put a little post-it note and have it say permanently awesome,
That's right.
because that is true.
Yes.
But he doesn't, and he doesn't define his identity around this, but it just feels like these little things, can we be a little more thoughtful
Oh, yeah.
in
Continue to remind
how,
us we're broken. Thank you. Thank you. Please keep reminding us I'm
yeah.
broken. I'm broken. I'm broken. I'm broken. Yeah, I know. And
So that's where that came
and
from.
that doesn't mess up our self-esteem too much. So yeah. Yeah, that's very beautiful. That's very, very beautiful. So, all right. Well, I want to make sure that the audience knows that you are available to speak about the book, and you love doing it, and obviously you're very good at it. But I also want you to tell us where to find the book, and also how do we get in touch with you if somebody wants to come to you to speak, or do book signings and things like that, because I know that right now with a new book coming out, this would be a really good time. If you haven't figured out your program for October, National Disability Employment Awareness Month, I have a great idea. Bring Carol in, buy a book for all of the attendees of the event, and let her talk about what she's doing. So yeah, there's a lot of ways
And
we can celebrate. But so over to you, Carol.
I love that question. Thanks,
Yeah.
Debra. So, Goodbye Orchid and Orchid Blooming can be purchased wherever books are available. So that includes bookshop.org, which really supports indie bookstores. Of course, it includes Amazon and Barnes & Noble, Target. And if the bookstore doesn't carry it, they can order it. That's the beauty of how we've moved to this distribution model in which they can get any title that you're looking for. And then in terms of reaching me, the one easy place, of course, there is my website with my long last name, carolvandenhende.com. And then I do have a link tree. So if you simply go to linktr.ee/CVDH, those are my initials, there will be links there to my social media, to places to purchase, to events as well. And then, in terms of speaking, there are book clubs who love to bring me in. I'm a member of Novel Network, in which there are 140 authors in addition to myself,
Wow.
whom book clubs can reach out and have them join. All of us, all 140 authors, can join either in person if the book club happens to be local, or virtually.
Right.
And book clubs have told me the meetings where they have me attend are the best meetings they've ever had,
Oh,
because the depth of conversation, the insight, the little, Easter egg design details that they wouldn't have seen unless I was there to show them, just wow them. So for instance, in both these books, in Orchid Blooming and Goodbye Orchid, the orchids that are on the front cover that are shattered or are blooming also are in the bottom right corner of every page.
oh, fun.
So if you have a physical book and you flip through, the orchids will appear to shatter
Oh,
until you get to the darkest part of the story, and then they visually come together for the emotionally satisfying ending.
how fun.
And so those are like the little things that people don't realize until they have the author visit.
Yeah, and that is wonderful because I love little things like that. I'm just really big into those details. I don't always know how to do them, but I always appreciate them. So, but you're also on LinkedIn. I believe that's where we met. So there's a lot of ways to find her. And you can also Google the books. That's another way. But I just want to, I believe it, and everybody knows this that listens, but I think it's really important to support each other. So I think we should all get behind Carol and support her and what she's doing. And I just love that you created the book because you were motivated by what our wounded warriors have gone through. Because they've given so much. They give so much. So I just really appreciate that. But I think right now we need to talk about PTSD a lot more thoughtfully. And we need to understand it is not just for people that, have been in a really bad accident or have been at war. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why we get PTSD. So I think it's a very, very important topic. So, all right. So Carol, one more time, will you give the audience your your web address?
Sure. It's Carol Van Den Hende, CarolVandenHende.com.
Cool. And I have one more question before you go. Have you found that your audience is mainly US, or are you finding that China? Where do you see a global response to the books?
So the books have been sold in all different countries around the world, and it's always thrilling to me to see readers in the UK, emailing me in the middle of the night and saying that the book kept them up way past their bedtime. They couldn't stop turning pages, had to find out what happened, and were just like, left in a pool of tears. But so yes, it's lovely to see readers all over the world. Probably a predominance in the US, which makes sense given that I'm a US based author, but it is wonderful that we now have distribution networks everywhere.
Right. And this is a very global audience. So, I heavily recommend everybody read it, because read both books and support Carol, but also support the community. So, Carol, thank you for being on the show. I'm so glad that Mars, does give free candy to their employees. Maybe they have good dental insurance too, but but yeah, so appreciate learning a little bit more about Mars. But I really, really appreciate the work that you're doing and the leadership you're showing. So I can't wait to get the books. I'm going to get the first one. I'll leave the review. And I really recommend my audience do that as well. So Carol, thanks for being on the show today. And thank you for Doug, my producer behind the scenes. But Carol, let me give you the last words before we go.
I just want to say I'm filled with gratitude for our time together, and I love your messages because I truly believe that we're all connected and we absolutely can all support each other. And I love the audience that is supporting you in the important work you're doing, Debra.
Oh, thank you. And also, we're going to put this book out on Billion Strong when we get that ready. I mean, we get that part ready too, so that you can easily find it as well. So thanks to the audience, and thank you, Carol, and good luck on the 13th with the launch of your new book.
Thanks so kindly.
Bye, everyone.
You've been listening to Human Potential at Work. To learn more about Rue Global Impact, visit rueglobal.com. And to learn more about Billion Strong, an identity and empowerment organization designed to bring the billions of voices of persons with disabilities together, you can join the global community and donate at billion-strong.org. That's billion-strong.org.